Morning. I'm GC McKay, and today we're going to be taking a look at Tampa by Alissa Nutting. Best fucking book cover of all time, in my opinion. It's brilliant. I haven't seen one that encapsulates a novel so well actually before, but yeah. It was first published in 2013, which makes it the most contemporary novel that I've covered so far, I believe, on this channel. Bit of trivia for you. You probably already know about this novel. It gets a comparison to Lolita, which I wasn't actually going to mention until during my research. I actually noticed that Nutting encouraged that comparison, which is gutsy enough in itself. So I will mention a little bit about that. It's nowhere near fucking Lolita. To even mention it in the same breath is fucking asking for a kind of very harsh indictment of your own piece. And yeah, it doesn't come anywhere near it. The only thing that is comparable is the fact that you are in the mind of a paedophile. But in this case, where Humbert will charm you into becoming an unreliable reader, as well as whilst following an unreliable narrator, especially as the latter stages of the novel progress, you're offered nothing of that through Celeste Price, who is a 26-year-old hebephilic, I think that's right, yeah, paedophile basically, who has a predilection for 14-year-old boys, very specific 14-year-old boys, ones that are clean, that, you know, no spots or acne or anything like that. She doesn't like that. She likes them clean-looking, shy, and with a body that's just coming into development. So a cross between kind of prepubescency and mild masculinity, I suppose. But they can't be broad-shouldered or anything like that. They need to be quite weak and puny, and so that she can control them and do whatever she pleases with them. And yeah, to continue that regard, whereas Humbert has a precursor because of his history, the only precursor to this novel is the fact that it is actually inspired by someone that Alissa Nutting knew and went to high school with. I won't mention her name because you can research that yourself if you're interested, but it was a real-life case of a 23-year-old woman who became a high school teacher and fucked a 14-year-old boy, and during her trial, her lawyer claimed that she was way too hot to be put in prison, and putting her in, well, incarcerating her would be like throwing raw meat to the lions. Which, well, if you want to know the conclusion of that particular trial, you can look it up, or you can just read this novel because it's basically the same. Which, yeah, and it makes it's mildly interesting, I suppose, in a trivial sense, that where it kind of was inspired from. But that's as far as it goes in terms of a backstory to Celeste Price, because she doesn't really ever have one. I'll get more into that a bit, I suppose, but for the most part, my feelings are quite conflicted with this novel, I suppose, and during this review, I suppose I want to balance them out a little bit, because although I enjoyed the piece and found it hilarious at times, actually, I did find it very amusing, because it is basically a satire. I suppose if you want to give it another comparison, which is unwarranted, to Lolita, you could say that it does play on this kind of satire element, but there's no comparison, you know. I mean, it doesn't really work. Just because the fucking premise is similar doesn't mean that you can go off spouting about how it's like a modern day version. That's just preposterous arrogance and shameless publicity kind of hunting, in my opinion. It didn't help the fact that there was a couple of bookstores, I think in Australia and one somewhere else, that refused to sell it and stock it. Which, of course, only feeds into that hungry lion known as the fucking publicity, because it gives it controversy and all that kind of stuff. Whereas the subject matter itself should be controversial enough to get it some attention. And I do also think if this was written by a dude, it probably would have never been fucking published, and no one would have even ever taken it seriously. Which is kind of ironic, I would say, considering the fact that it is supposed to be talking about the kind of male sexual view of females and how they should perform in society and how they should behave and all that kind of nonsense. And yeah, so the story begins. I found it difficult to get into actually at the beginning because it's Celeste Price isn't someone you can take a shine to unless you really enjoy reading about sociopaths, to be honest, because she lives this kind of very austere life. She's married to a dude who's a complete moron called Ford, who's 15 years her senior. So I found that to be quite a playful little thing. It's like she's married her daddy so she can carry on fucking kids. Yeah, there is I thought that was quite clever, actually, in a way. And he's a cop as well, I should mention. So she's already kind of playing a bit dangerously there. But she can control this guy because she's basically a trophy wife to him, and she knows that. So it's another kind of little social commentary going on there, I believe. And yeah, she's just got this job at a high school because she's been, crushing her feelings down so much and repressing her inner sexual urges that now it's got to the breaking point, and she's got a job in a school and she wants to find some 14-year-old dick. It's dick. That's all she fucking cares about. Is she wants to gorge on as many as she fucking can, and she gets the perfect job to do it. She drives a red sports car, a Corvette, I believe, that was paid for by daddy. And yeah, she basically shamelessly gloats about her calculative, I don't even know if that's a word, but calculating nature. And she's very misanthropic, which I enjoyed. I mean, she just fucking hates everyone. And I found that an interesting juxtaposition because she is gorgeous as well. And that served quite well because inside her mind, she objectifies everything and everyone around her. She's not just obsessed with youths, as in their dicks, which she is, by the way. I mean, you don't get through a chapter of this without hearing about either the sexual exploits she's engaging in throughout the novel, or that she's fantasizing about in between, because if she's not masturbating over the fucking Backstreet Boys whilst her husband passed out because of the drugs she gave him, then she's basically off in some dreamland in the middle of fucking something that's actually going on, where she's frolicking through hayfields with naked 14-year-old boys holding her hands and then waiting in line so they can all get their piece of her. And yeah, for the ludicrousness that's involved in it, I found it fucking hilarious. And there are elements of her personality that I did actually take to in a very kind of deviant way, and I did appreciate that. But at the same time, she's completely two-dimensional. I mean, even two-dimensional feels too much, because, like I've just mentioned, that's pretty much all you really get to learn about her. That's it. There's no backstory, there's no precursor, ironically, because I think the only time she really talks about her past is when she was first getting fucked, and because that supposedly, kind of put her, it basically traps her within that kind of youthful mindset of being obsessed with only that, because like I said, it's not just 14-year-old dick she wants, she also wants to stay as young as possible for as long as possible, and everything else that she does outside of fantasizing about teens is much more to do with maintaining her appearance. And for me, I was wondering whether Nutting deliberately did that, and I would probably lean on yes overall. I think making her a kind of villainous, two-dimensional sociopath was quite a brave choice, although it did get a little grating after a while, because the fantasies just get ludicrous after a while, and although they are amusing and highly satirical, it does make you question the character you're reading about, because she doesn't really feel like a real human being. But as Nutting did write it in the first person, I do think that this whole image idea is purposefully crafted throughout it, and because of Celeste Price's personality, she wouldn't actually show you any moments of vulnerability, because one of the other themes is control. She's relentless on this control of her body, of her environment, of her husband, of her own body. I think I just said that, and of the pupils that she seduces, which, I mean, it's difficult to really judge, because I just read one review that started banging on about how if a woman does this, it's just the same as a man. Rape. It's rape. Doesn't matter what, whether the boy wants it and all that kind of stuff. And to be honest, I completely think that's horseshit. I don't really think I can get on board with that, because, it takes a boner to be able to forcefully inject yourself into anything, and if you look at the definition of rape, I could say that it's definitely an emotional abuse. I can get on board with that, because the kid Jack Patrick, who she obviously is going to hook up with, I mean, that's the problem with the beginning of it. It's too easy to predict what's going to happen. It's like, woman with everything in the world holds sexual deviancy secrets, gets a job at a school. I wonder what's going to happen next. Is she going to succeed? It's obvious what's going to happen. But I actually found that it was still very intriguing, and because of its hilarious nature and almost cartoonish developments, I was just intrigued to see what fucking thing was going to happen next. And it's blatantly obvious it's all going to come falling apart for Celeste, but at the same time, I was intrigued to see how it would happen. And there's a few little moments in between that are really quite, again, hilarious, but also so deviant in their nature that I was just kind of lapping it up with delight throughout most of it. But I did think it was limited in what it was trying to say, and because it was almost making a satire of the male pornified fantasy of a female, because Celeste is basically a porn star who wants to give this image of the male fantasy throughout the piece. And I think that's what Nutting was trying to give a commentary on. It's like, it's not viewed as abuse through our society because of the viewpoints of men, which, although is a little grating and demeaning in some regards, there is an element of truth in that. But at the same time, the point that is made quite clear throughout the novel, but is made more poignant towards the end, and that of beauty being something that lets people get away with shit, it's so fucking obvious that it didn't even need to be said. It's like, if you haven't figured that out by the time you get to fucking 18 or whatever, you got a lot of problems heading for you, because the pretty person, regardless of fucking which sex they are, will always be above. There's a reason Ted Bundy got to slaughter a load of women. It wasn't because he was it wasn't just his charm. It's like he was fucking good looking, and the women he went for were obviously duped by that, and therefore he had easy pickings. It was fucking easy for him to do it, because the women around him were complete suckers and didn't see through the veneer of, I mean, I don't know whether you've seen that film that came out recently with the ridiculous title, that showed this kind of element of Bundy of being this charming kind of manipulative seducer, and didn't really say much else, and so it kind of glorified it in a sense. But in a way, this is exactly what Celeste Price is. She's beautiful. If you were a 14-year-old dude, and I put this question out there because I'm not sure on the answer, because I think what I got annoyed with the other reviews saying like, this is abuse and blah blah blah, we need to talk about this, it's like, life is going to fuck you anyway. As Kurt Cobain said, no one dies a virgin. Life fucks everyone. And who would you rather, it's inevitable that you're going to have your heart broken during your adolescent years, especially the teen ones, because your hormones are all over the place, you don't know yourself, and generally you're asking for it a lot of the time, and people want their hearts broken at those moments, and that's the best time to do it. So what would you pick? A fucking annoying 15, 14-year-old girl who says, ew, you're mean, or a hot 26-year-old porn star who's fucking gagging for it and will teach you everything that you need to know for the future? It's like, well, I wonder which one I want. It's like, especially because they go on about the trauma or the traumatizing elements of it, but it's like, that shit's gonna happen anyway. It's like, I don't understand this viewpoint of like trying to protect vulnerable minds or whatever you want to call it, because you're going to get fucked, regardless of whether it's psychological, in the body, physical, blah 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 blah. Because once you get out of high school and out of college and all that stuff, all the bullshit that you've been taught throughout your whole fucking life comes crashing under the weight of your own ignorance, and you have to go out into the world completely unprepared, I would say. I mean, there probably are some people who do get this actual warning that, yeah, wait a minute, the fucking world isn't all rainbows and sunshine. It's awful, and you need to have your wits about you if you're going to survive it. And I think many people would benefit from that lesson as early as they could fucking get it. So for me, it's like, yeah, okay, he might, obviously this Jack Patrick 14-year-old kid who gets involved with Celeste, who probably thinks he's won the lottery at the beginning, but then he wants to do dumb shit like, you know, write her fucking cards and put like stationery over it and all that kind of stuff and glitter and give it to her on Valentine's Day and all that, and it's all kind of tragic in its humour and in its reality, because it's like, yeah, I remember being that fucking young and stupid, and there is a kind of, I think what people get protective of is the fact that that should be allowed to happen, I suppose. But I don't think any relationship would actually stop that, unless it was particularly abusive. But Celeste is a sociopath, and she's an unforgiving, unrelenting, misanthropic one at that. So you don't really, there's no room for fucking emotions within this, and she quite often makes a comment on that as well. So once I got on board with that, I was quite intrigued to see where it all went, and overall I'd say, yeah, it's a good novel. I do think it's worth checking out. Some people went on about the sex scenes being really graphic, and you know, it's like when you go out into the fucking real world and you realise that 90% of people are just fucking idiots. And most of them are on Goodreads apparently, because they couldn't review a fucking book to save their lives. And they leave GIFs and stuff like that, and they comment how the book relates to their own lives and shit like that, and there's no kind of objective opinion whatsoever. It's just their own viewpoint, and they're moulded into their own narrative, and it's so depressing to read. But it's also funny to read, and yeah, I suppose overall it does definitely get you thinking quite a lot, and I did think Nutting made some quite brave choices in it that could easily be overlooked. But at the same time, I do think that the odd moments where Celeste shows a certain vulnerability or outlook on life are sadly underused, I would say. As an example,
Jack stayed for a moment, crying, then looked over at me. It wasn't at all the look of hatred I'd expected. Instead, it was a look of mutual knowledge, Jack conveying to me his new understanding that the world could be a terrible place. His eyes said that no one at all was looking out for him or able to fix this essential flaw in life's fabric. My eyes stared back and told him that he was right.
So yeah, those kind of moments are rare throughout the novel, but I thought they were the most interesting, and it gave Celeste a kind of side of her character that isn't really present throughout all of it, pretty much. Because there's too much fucking going on, basically. Because she obviously knows that in her kind of, because of her urges, sometimes she has to obviously sleep with her husband, and usually it's because she works herself up into a state, then takes a shitload of drugs. Again, this is like the porn star thing, because it's like, she has to dissociate before she can engage in things that she doesn't want to do. And I do think that was a kind of a mirror of how pornography works, essentially. I don't know whether that was having a bitch at the male viewpoint or not, but in general, the kind of Barbie girl doll kind of thing. I mean, she's like a sex robot that's constantly on rabbit mode, really. And if you're not in the mood for that kind of thing, I think she'll just annoy you, and you'll kind of be like, oh, it's just too relentless, because she isn't just interested in 14-year-old dick. She's absolutely obsessed with it, and I think indulging in it actually just encourages it to get further and further into the realms of complete and utter lunacy and ridiculousness, and yeah, the cross between fantasy and reality becomes something like cartoonish overall. And again, the point about beauty letting you get away with shit is kind of, yeah, and it's like, yeah, we know that, don't we? I mean, we're human beings, we're shallow as fuck. It's not just men who do that. Sorry, Alissa. I've known plenty of women to go out with dudes just because they were broad-shouldered and tall and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, that point doesn't really hold any water, I don't think. It's like, yeah, we're shallow. The pretty person's always going to get the job over you. It's always going to get the apartment you're looking for over you. It's going to get the fucking promotion over you. And that's the harsh reality of our sick species. It's like, you can get away with shit, basically. If you look like fucking George Clooney, you'll get reviewed as if you're some amazing actor, when really you're kind of subpar and you're always just playing yourself. And, you know, you're not suave and smooth as you fucking think you are. It's just because you look it, cunt. And overall, we're a species that is just irredeemable at this point. It's like, yeah, we're shallow and superficial, and, you know, beauty's been something that has benefited so many people throughout the years. It's a wonder why we haven't evolved to actually view it with the utmost suspicion by this point, because it's like, yeah, it's ludicrous, and yeah. I don't know, I feel like the point I've been trying to make to finalise this has been made redundant by my own review, which is kind of ironic because I think that's what the novel does as well. So I'm going to leave it on that point. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much to my patrons. If you want to sign up yourselves, it can be cheap if you want it to be. Just follow the link down below. And yeah, if I've missed something out, or you have your own kind of insights into this piece, please comment down below. I'd like to hear you. I'd like to hear from you. And yeah, that's it. I'm gone. See you later. I'll be back next week. Bye.